South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rock and dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grandview Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grandview Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grandview Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome in, everybody. This is Sports by the Book, live from the South Point studio. You can find this show 7 days a week, Sunday through Friday, 9 a.m., and then Saturdays, 8 a.m., of course, to get you going before kickoff of college football. Also, 3 great Sports by the Book football frenzy shows in the evenings, Monday and Thursday at 3 p.m., and Fridays, 2 to 4 with Jeff Parles and the guys from Behind the Book, Chris Andrews and company. Thanks so much for joining us here today. If you are watching live, please jump in the comment section. We'd love to hear from you. Any notes that you have, we will cover 2 games that were requested yesterday from some people who follow along with us. I'm Alex White, joined here on the desk every Monday through Wednesday. Kenny White here. I want to start off with a little bit of a reaction from yesterday's college football playoff, their first reveal on where we think these teams are going to end up. But first, good morning. Happy Wednesday.
Morning. Yes, happy Wednesday. And this is the first I've seen it. So I took all yesterday to update every college basketball game from Monday.
That was a lot of college basketball games.
So I was really busy yesterday. And plus, I stood in line to vote for 2 hours last night, or 2.5 hours last night.
I think some of the longest lines that we've had here in Las Vegas.
Last night. It was cold. Interesting. Okay. Oregon.
So as of right now, yes, it looks like the Power 4 projected winners of that conference right now will get the bye here. So Oregon, and then Georgia comes in at a higher seed with that win over Texas. They're at a 3 seed. Miami would have a 4 seed, of course, winning out the ACC, and then BYU for the Big 12. Oh my
gosh, I don't even like it already. You're going to put BYU in the Final Four. They're not even a top 25 team. They don't have top 25 talent. They're not even the best team in their conference.
Ooh.
So they're never going to end up there. I guess that's the way it has to shake out because they are undefeated. But
well, the interesting thing is Boise State is seeded right now at 12. And if they can jump BYU in the seeding and win their conference, the Mountain West, then they could jump ahead of BYU and have a bye there. So
I don't like that either.
Yeah.
Because if Ohio State played BYU tomorrow, Ohio State's a 14-point favorite. Why did they deserve? I mean, Ohio State's way better than BYU, and Ohio State's way better than Boise State. So I understand it's the record, but Boise State's playing Mountain West Conference teams. If Ohio State was in the Mountain West Conference, they would go undefeated and beat everybody by 40 points.
Trying to give some initiative to win their conference tournament, right? So you don't just take those losses and say, I want to get into the playoffs and not have to play in the championship game, have that week off, kind of like we talked about yesterday with Penn State, who is projected to be in it right now, but probably won't be playing in the Big Ten Conference Championship. So they'll get a bye week that week, right?
Right.
And then have to play the first week here. So it is some initiative to win out and win their conference. That's how they worded it. The top 4 seeded conference champions will get the bye week. So this is where we are right now.
I know that, and it's a shame because, and other sports have done things like this, but then they made changes because they knew it was wrong. Like WNBA is one that they only had 12 teams. So they had 2 6-team leagues, and they had a team winning one league, and 8 teams or 6 teams from the other conference were better.
Yeah.
So they said, we can't do this anymore. And it's, every league has made adjustments. The NBA has now gone to a play-in tournament at the end for their bottom teams. But I just can't see Ohio State. I can't see a BYU getting in front of Ohio State. I don't care that Ohio State didn't win the conference. And who would win that conference? Oregon's Oregon wins the conference, so Oregon is there. It's still hard for me to think about Oregon being in the Big Ten.
It is very interesting right now. They do have Alabama getting in there with 2 losses. Texas A&M outside looking in, as well as Missouri, but still pretty high in the seeding. And then also SMU right now, first team out is what is the projection. So should get interesting. A lot of games played this weekend and, throughout this regular season to help determine where we end up with the 12-team college football playoff.
I have to look at BYU and see what their remaining schedule is. I know they play Utah this week. That could be a loss right there. And I want to see who they played so far. So they beat SMU early in the year, and SMU, their quarterback was injured in that game, and they won 18-15. Wyoming's no good. They did crush Kansas State. It was a big win. They beat Baylor by 6, beat Arizona. They beat Oklahoma State by 3 in a game Oklahoma State really was the better team most of the game. And then they beat Central Florida. So they have Utah, Kansas, who I thought was better than them to begin the year, at Arizona State, who's played amazing this year, in Houston to end the season. They could run the table. They probably will be favored in all 4 games, but they could be favored in all 4 games and go undefeated, and then play their very first game in the college football playoff and be a 10-point underdog.
Ooh.
They could be undefeated and be a 10-point underdog. It all has always come back to Las Vegas for us, that being line makers and making the numbers and knowing what the odds are going to be on these teams, and then looking at the AP, and the AP puts somebody in their rankings that we know shouldn't be there just because of record and who you've played. And we're going to talk about a team like that today that's playing tonight in the MAC.
It is interesting. And I brought up Ole Miss yesterday, being in both of our top 10s, I think almost even close to the top 5, right? Talent-wise. And they won't even get a shot at this 12-team playoff. I know they are trying to even it out. There is a lot of love right now for the Big Ten and SEC, but still only 1 team projected from the Big 12 and 1 from the ACC, if I'm not mistaken. So very interesting. Of course, Notre Dame is in there, as well as the Independent, which I do believe is correct as well. But
so
yeah.
Mississippi, I would have a 12-point favorite over BYU right now in a neutral field. That's what I would make the game, and it would come out. It's going to come out to 10. Maybe it would come out lower because BYU's undefeated. It would come out 7, 7.5. But Mississippi, who doesn't make the playoffs, would be a 7.5-point favorite. Again, life isn't fair, and obviously how they pick the teams for the playoffs isn't fair either. I guess they have to do it a way that they have to do it. The college basketball has always been with 64 teams. You don't leave out someone who could win it all. Someone who could win it all is never left out. In this, if Mississippi is left out, they're a team that could win it all.
Very interesting. Of course, cannot play that many games for football, but I'm sure they will adjust things after this year and try and keep adjusting until they find the best solution to get the 12 best teams in.
Hey, I'm glad they have it. I love it. I've been dying for this to happen for 20 years, that we've been asking for this to happen, just as college basketball. I don't think it's going to be the same craziness as March Madness is, but it's going to be fun. And we've asked for it as sports bettors for so many years because the FCS has been doing this for 40 years. And I don't understand why it's more difficult for the FBS kids to go to school and have to play every week when the FCS kids were doing it. So,
yeah,
I'm just looking at Mississippi. They lost to Kentucky by 3 at home, and they lost in overtime at LSU by 3. So they've lost 2 games by 3 points to 2 SEC teams, to 2 teams that would also be favored over BYU.
Very interesting. We do have Alabama, LSU playing this weekend, which could determine a lot. LSU right now ranked 15. Alabama, as I mentioned, 11th. So as of right now, they would be in the 12-team playoff. Big game for both of them this weekend, as all of these are.
Mississippi versus Georgia this weekend is the biggest game for Mississippi. They are at home. If they win this game, they'll be back in the college football playoff because they'll beat Florida and they'll beat Mississippi State. So
that's
very interesting. I need to find a future on Mississippi. They're my new favorite team.
That's intriguing because Georgia, of course, has the big win over Texas. So if Mississippi had the big win over Georgia, how they would manage that seems. I'm glad I'm not in their shoes. I'll just say that.
It comes down to it, but I hope they don't look at things like the AP poll to try to see who they think is better than other teams. There needs to be a much better system that they need to have to be able to adjust the ratings, know the players and how good they are and how good the teams are. So we'll see.
It's amazing, though, because the networks have said for years, and they've alluded to, and they've said, well, Vegas has this team, but still nobody has ever gone and asked a bookmaker for their opinion and to help in any of these rankings.
And Brian Blessing and I were down in, I think we were in Miami for the Super Bowl, and we put together a box score for the football game. Brian's like, can you do it? I said, yeah, I can do it from all the prop bets. I'll just do a box score and what I think is going to happen and what's up there. And we made a box score up. And then the next thing, there was discussion about a college football playoff. And I put together a 16-team college football playoff with all the bowl games that are out there now. 20 years ago, I put the 12 top or the 16 top teams in the brackets, and they were all bowl games. And because people were all worried about the bowl games going away,
right?
There'll be no more Rose Bowl, no more Orange Bowl. That's not true. You just rotate every year to which one's going to be the championship game, and they got it and they figured it out. But I put together that bracket and that tournament 20 years ago. It's probably on my computer somewhere in my hard drive.
I have no doubt.
Back then.
Yes. Well, we will get to some college football second half of the show. We do have 2 MAC games we will cover, and then we will go into the 2 games that were requested, and that is Indiana, Michigan, and as I mentioned, Alabama and LSU. So 4 college football games we will talk about towards the end. We're going to hit today's action right now off the top of the show. We're going to start with hockey, switch it up a little bit today. There are 3 games in the National Hockey League. Nashville at Washington, Red Wings against the Blackhawks, and then VGK going to Edmonton. No Connor McDavid just yet. He is on track, though. I believe he will be playing Saturday, so we'll keep an eye on that as well. They were shut out the other night after players really stepping up while he has been gone. But 2 hockey. Predators 4-7-1, 1-1-1 on the road. The Capitals 8-3. They have been a very surprising story here. 6-1 at home so far this year. Anything jump out to you? I know that we have been following Nashville and waiting for them to turn it around.
And Washington is, you said they're 6-1. They won their last 6 home games. So playing very good at home. Charlie Lindgren will go in goal. He's the backup to Logan Thompson. And there is a small drop-off. But I still, as good as Washington's played, I had to make them the favorite. I made them $1.27, 6 over 33. So I do lean to the over in this hockey game, especially with Charlie Lindgren going.
And Ovechkin has been scoring on a crazy amount. He is chasing a record, so that is fun to keep an eye on as well.
Nashville 3 in a row under on the road, but Washington 4 in a row over at home.
Okay. They are playing fast, good hockey right now. Red Wings 5-1-1, 5-5-1. I'm sorry, 2-2 at away. Blackhawks 5-7-1 and 1-3 at home. Detroit -115 on the road. Total 6 over.
I lean to Detroit. I like this hockey team. I think they're very, very good. In Chicago, again, I think their goaltending is rather below average. They've lost 3 in a row at home. They must be coming back to home because they are on a 2-game winning streak. So Chicago did win 2 road games. I don't recall who they played, but I'd like to know because it must have been 2 weaker teams. Maybe one was San Jose. But they've lost 3 straight home games in a row coming into this one. Going to have a little bit of a rivalry, Detroit and Chicago. I think they're part of the original 6.
Yes, they are part of the original 6. Detroit, interesting. They are in that kind of middle tier group where they'll be fighting against Ottawa and some of those other teams right there to try and make the playoffs. Some of them still try to jump ahead of Boston. Boston was shut out yesterday. We did talk about Toronto, that move being a little bit too aggressive without Austin Matthews. But moving to the final game, the Golden Knights, very good at home so far this year. Their record, they are 8-3-1, but on the road, they have not won in regulation yet. I'm sorry, they have not won. They've only forced one overtime. They're 0-3-1 on the road. Edmonton 6-6-1, 2-4-1 at home this year.
Yeah, and looking at my numbers, the first thing I thought I saw Edmonton 3 straight unders at home, which is kind of surprising because they have fast ice and they're a high-scoring team. But the Knights 3-0 over on the road. I made it 6.5 under 15. I again another. Here we go. I love unders and underdogs, and I'm on 2 overs here. Washington over the 6, and Edmonton I would go over 6 goals as well. I know the Knights haven't scored on the road like they have at home, but they will.
Yeah. They
will. They have a great offensive team, and this would be a team that'd be a breakout game, I believe, to be able to put some goals up on the board because Edmonton's going to score. So the side's right there. I think the number on the side is just right, even though the Knights have lost 4 in a row on the road.
As we talk about with the best player going down, the other player stepping up, and we have seen that from Leon Draisaitl in the past, and then Zach Hyman, very good scorer for Edmonton as well. I like that plus money here with Vegas. I think that -140 is a little aggressive. Still kind of rolling over from the opening lines of Edmonton and them being a favorite to win the cup, but they have not really played to that level yet. I mean, 6-6-1 on the season, and as long as Aiden Hill is in net, they definitely have the goalie advantage as well, even though Skinner has been very good to start the season.
So the line movement was the news on Connor McDavid playing tonight.
He is playing?
Yeah, he is playing.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why the line
He was not supposed to play for another week, and then they thought he was going to push it and play Saturday, and now he is playing tonight.
Lower back injury. Yeah, and that's why the number went up because they got news. The bettors got news that McDavid's in the lineup. So I'd have to definitely adjust that as well. So.
Yeah,
that makes the over better, but the number
yes, it does.
The total went up as well now to 6.5 over 15. So those 6s are long gone, but then I would adjust mine as well with McDavid. So I like it better, even more over the 6.5.
Okay,
I think you had to get 7 goals anyway.
Right,
I had to get 7 goals anyway to win. So now I don't have to lay the $1.25, and I've got one of the best scorers in hockey in the game. So. Like that one even more.
Okay, well, that's it for hockey. Let's move to a little bit of college basketball. I know that you had a few differences, and we highlighted them on our sheet. So we're going to start off from the top here. Let me find this.
I had a lot of differences in totals today.
Yes, you did. Oh, here we go with our today's hoops bets. If you want to just start it off from the top, I believe it was
it's like Dippin' Dots.
Pepperdine. I know you have something on the Pepperdine game.
Yeah, Pepperdine, where's that at? Pepperdine's playing Western Illinois. Western Illinois is an up-tempo team. Their coach, Chad Boudreau, is in his second year, but they played very fast last year, efficient on offense, and their defense was well below average. Now, Pepperdine, being coached by Ed Schilling now instead of Lorenzo Romar. Romar was a really up-tempo, fast-paced coach. Ed Schilling, not quite that type of fast-paced coach, so I've adjusted that down, but I still came with a total. I made it 147. It was 138.5 earlier this morning and then bet down. Want to see what we're at the South Point here. Number on that game, Pepperdine, 136.5.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it ticked back up a point since I talked about it. So I'm over there in the Pepperdine game.
Any dogs that jumped out to you? I know we've got Boise State hosting Oakland, and they are getting 17. Is that enough to take a dog there, or maybe down the board a little bit? SDSU against UC San Diego. San Diego getting 11 in that one.
It's so amazing to look at my sheet sometimes, and I worry, about mistakes because it is Excel spreadsheets, and it's so easy to make a mistake in. And I look across and I see years for the basketball coach, 40. That can't be right, but it is. Greg Camp is the head coach of Oakland. He has been there 40 years. 40 years as the head coach of Oakland. It is amazing. And that team has had some good years. They've made the NCAA tournament a couple times. He's an up-tempo coach because you pointed that out to me, saying I had a difference on it. It wasn't big enough. I don't like taking big dogs early in the season. They're traveling for the first time. That's always an adventure. The one thing in college basketball that I love to look for, and actually Doug Castaneda, the sportsbook director at the Win, told me this 30-some years ago when I was giving him my lines in the morning. He was at the Stardust, and I would call them every morning and give them my opening numbers so that they could open their lineup. And Doug said, "Oh, this is their first game on the road." And I was like, "I don't care about that." But it was in December, and the team had already played 10 games, and they were all at home, and this was their first road game. And that team got wiped out that day. So I started following that, and that is very big. It's worth almost 5 points to the betting line when a team plays their first game on the road, but it's not the first game of like this early in the year.
Right.
It doesn't matter now, but if a team plays 6, 7, 8 games and then plays their first road game, they don't do well. They're dialed in at home. They're dialed in with their fans. They're playing good basketball. They're overconfident. They go on the road, and then, oh my gosh, the crowd's yelling at them. They don't realize. So a lot of kids, it's their first time ever, going into a hostile environment like that. So look for that later on in December. First week of December, you'll see a lot of teams playing their first game on the road. Could be the last week of November now because the season starts so early. But anyway, I'm not taking the points in this game, but I do have a play on the next game.
Yes.
Rivalry, Seattle and Eastern Washington. I made the game 5, Seattle 5. I adjusted even home court. I didn't give much home court for Eastern Washington because it is a rivalry, but that's why I like the dog. A home dog in a rivalry game. Dan Munson's new. He was fired at Long Beach State last year. The athletic director fired him right before the end of the season, like the last game of the year. He said, "You can stay on, though, and coach the team in the conference tournament." They won the conference tournament and then went on and played in the NCAA tournament. They got blown out by Arizona the first game, and then he was still let go. But he resurfaces right away at Eastern Washington, who has nobody back. Everybody left the program. But it is a program that is a winning tradition, and they have a lot of players. And Dan Munson's a really good head coach, and I expect him, the guys he brought in from the transfer portal, to be competitive. And they're just going to go play basketball, in that game tonight. So I took Eastern Washington plus 8.5.
Anything on the last game, or should we move over to the NBA? We've got Ryder at San Diego. San Diego minus 1.5, the total 148.
Well, I had 3 big totals. And the plays I just talked about,
yes,
Pepperdine over and Eastern Washington, were 1% plays from me. But I did have 3 straight games where I had more than a 10-point difference on the totals, and I played them for 2%. Riders at San Diego, I made it 133, and I went under 148. That number's still pretty much readily available out there. Wagner and Rutgers made it 142. Wagner is a very up-tempo team. They play very fast. Went over 130. Rutgers should have no problem scoring against them. And that total went down to 129. And Mercyhurst, new to the NCAA Division I, came up from Division II, playing Morgan State. I went under there. I only made that total 132. Mercyhurst, very, very slow and methodical basketball team. So I went under 148 there. All those were 2% plays.
Sean will be very happy because I believe he was on the Rider San Diego under as well from doing his research and seeing how those first games went for those two teams. I like that little nugget you gave about teams that are playing at home a lot. Are we really going to see a team play 6 straight at home? I'm pretty sure UNLV has their first 3 this week are definitely at home. I'll have to look and see when they go on the road, but it seems like a lot of games to start off the season without traveling.
Now, sometimes if a team travels to a tournament, let's say they go to Hawaii, there's no hostile environment there. So this is like the first hostile environment game as well. So a good team like Arkansas could play 4 home games, go to Hawaii, play 3 games, come back home, play a couple more home games. Then they go play into a hostile environment, and it's everything's changed now. Yeah. People are yelling against you. And
that's a good clarification. And those small tournaments, I mean, they are dialed in and focused in that. Sometimes
it's a vacation. What I found out with the women's, all the good teams that went out of town did not, they did not perform up to their capabilities. So, yeah, it's something to take a look at, though, and maybe even go through each team's schedule right now and start circling those games.
Right.
I know a lot of people that handicap the NBA, they go through that and do that before the season starts. And a lot of people that handicap Major League Baseball will go through the season schedule and circle a series that they think may be a bad spot for teams.
Well, and we like to do that with NBA and NHL with playoff revenge and see those first matchups that we have. And it worked out against the Pacers. That is the Boston Celtics' first and only loss on the year. So have to finish going through those as well.
UNLV will play Memphis, and I guess they're hosting Memphis.
Hosting Memphis on Saturday.
Hosting Omaha, hosting Pepperdine, hosting New Mexico State. And then they do play on the 28th. There's an asterisk after Mississippi State. So that may be a tournament game. So that's played on a neutral location. I'm not sure where that tournament game is, but again, it may not be a hostile environment. Saturday, December 7th, they will go to their first true road game to Creighton.
Oh, to Creighton. And there's some revenge there.
Is there?
Yes, there is.
For UNLV?
UNLV beat them last year.
Oh, UNLV beat them?
Yes, they did.
Oh, my gosh. Creighton will be ready for that game. So there's a lot of teams out there. And this one, we did find that they're playing that neutral court game against Mississippi State. I'm not sure where that's at. Now, if that's being played in Jackson, Mississippi.
Brian did say it is a tournament, though.
It's going to be a Mississippi State,
okay,
home game. But we'd have to take a look at that further and find out where that's at.
Okay, we'll keep UNLV on our radar, especially that Creighton game. Let's go to some NBA. Okay. As I mentioned, there are some situational spots that I was looking at, and we'll start off, though, with the first game on the schedule, Orlando Magic, Indiana Pacers. Now, we still have no Banchero for the Magic, and that has definitely hurt them. They've lost 4 straight on the road. Pacers lost 2 on the road. Now they are going back home, laying 5 points. 226.5 is the total.
I think that total's a little high. I only made it 218.5. What did you say the side was?
-5.
-5. I even lead to Indiana here. I made them 8.5, and I like this Pacers basketball team. I think they've got scoring and good passing at each position on the court, and a good rim protector with Turner. And you mentioned without Banchero, the Magic have struggled. He was kind of their leader and their scoring guy, and the guy they look to shoot big shots. I think Franz Wagner is their best player. He doesn't get as much credit for it, but still losing a player like Banchero really hurts.
I would be with you. Indiana here, -5 at home. especially coming off of 2 losses too, trying to turn it back around, but some really good players on that team. Looking at the Pistons, and this is what I asked you off air, if NBA players can have letdowns, because they're coming off a big upset win over the Lakers, 115-103 at home. Now going to Charlotte, the Hornets -1, total 222.5.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed they do. You would think they wouldn't, but it is an 82-game schedule, and when you play your A game, it's hard to come back and play another A game. And JB Bickerstaff has plenty of experience being a head coach, but it's his first year with these guys. So you don't really push them that hard, I don't think, at the beginning. I did make Detroit a point favorite. They are the better basketball team. And the total 221.5.
So nothing in that one, really. Golden State, really good. Got Steph Curry back. He had 24 points in that first game back against the Wizards. They won 125-112. Taking on the Boston Celtics. I already mentioned it. Just one loss so far this year, and that was to the Indiana Pacers. So Boston, 6-point favorite at home, total 229.5. Is that enough points to take with the Golden State Warriors?
How many points?
6 points.
I made it 10, so okay. No, and that's even with Brown out, but I'm only a Brown worth a point because I think Derek White's their second best player, and even Porzingis is out worth a couple points, but we know the Celtics are the better basketball team, and they're playing at home. Their home court is worth 4 points at least to the betting line, so you can't tell me that Boston's just 2.5 points better. This will be a game that the Celtics get up for just because it's Steph Curry. So Tatum will be up. Tatum's going to have a big game tonight. He would be a guy I would look at maybe over on some scoring props or maybe even his points, rebounds, and assist numbers.
Steve Cofield made such a good point on Cofield and Company. And he was talking about Boston and them being the defending champions, but it not really feeling that way because of Team USA in the middle there in the summer, right? And they had a few Celtics players on that team that felt disrespected. And with the playing time, and Jason Tatum was definitely one of those players compared to Steph Curry here, who led that team to a gold medal. So, I mean, maybe that comes up a little bit in this one. And
I think it could. If you're Jason Tatum and you felt that way, you're being a little disrespected. One way to show that you are the better player is to be better one-on-one in the game that you play against that guy's team, and that would be tonight.
And that, I mean, that'll be a tough challenge, that's for sure, because Steph Curry is still the better player, wouldn't you say?
Right now?
Yes.
Oh, no. Jason Tatum's definitely the better player right now. That those two, just Steph Curry's 34, 35 years old now, and he did have a great Olympics. There's no doubt about it. He was the star of the Olympic basketball team, but Jason Tatum won the NBA championship last year against better competition than what the Olympic team played. So
that is true. That in that Eastern Conference,
he is the real deal.
Let's go to the New York Nets at Atlanta. Neither team really starting off too strong here, but still. Did I say Nets? I meant Knicks. They are a 7-point favorite on the road, 226.5. I know you're not really high on this Atlanta Hawks team either.
No, and they have injuries still. Trae Young is playing tonight, and DeAndre Hunter is questionable, but Bogdan Bogdanovic is still out with a hamstring injury, and he's I think the most important piece for that team. I think the Knicks still trying to get used to, Karl Anthony Towns. It's going to take a little time, but I did make the Knicks a lot bigger favorite. Okay. I made them 11.5 on the road, so I do like New York tonight.
Okay. I like that team. I'm rooting for them. I was rooting for them in the postseason last year as well. Let's go to San Antonio Spurs, who have struggled. They are just 1-3 on the road. Houston, 4-3 on the season, 2-2 at home. Houston, 6.5-point favorite, though, a total really low, 215.
Yeah, we lose with the Spurs the other night. Thought that they would play for their head coach, and they did. They came out 40-14 in the first quarter.
Yes.
They were just on fire, playing great basketball, and then all of a sudden, they must have started to think how their coach is doing in the hospital, and they lose. They lost the game. The Clippers came all the way back and won that battle.
First Clippers win in the new arena.
Yeah, that was their first win.
So that they were really trying to get that as well.
But so Greg Popovich, our thoughts and prayers go out to him and hope he's doing well and hope he gets healthy quickly. But Spurs players, I'm sure their minds are, on him, and because Pop's a very, very likable guy, and the players love him. All the players that have played for him,
yes,
love him. It's it's not the same like a Bill Belichick. All the players hated Bill Belichick. Every single one of them couldn't stand Bill Belichick, but they all like Greg Popovich.
It was a respect-hate, though.
Where, the Patriots?
Yeah.
Well, no, they did respect him. They had to, but it was like a common ground thing that every player in the Patriots had. They all hated him, couldn't stand him. I didn't think that would be true, but I've talked to several Patriot players, ex-players who played for him, and the first one I said, you had to love it playing for Bill Belichick. He says, hated it. It's the worst time of my life. Couldn't stand the man. But he worked them. NFL players don't get worked like college kids would get worked. And he made them work harder than college kids would work. And the professional players think that, we're already in shape. We know what we're doing. But Bill Belichick, he worked them, he made them prepare, and that's why they were so successful, but they did have Tom Brady.
Yes. Cleveland, still undefeated. 8-0 on the season, 4-0 on the road, going to New Orleans. They are a 7-point favorite on the road, the total 223.
Well, amazing that they played the Bucks with no Giannis, and they couldn't cover the game. And now they play New Orleans, who's had some injuries. Murray is out, McCollum is out, Herb Jones is out, and then Zion Williamson's missed the last couple games with a hamstring and thigh injury. We'll see if he plays tonight. I did make my number with Williamson playing because I think he returns tonight, and I still made the Cavaliers 14.5.
Wow, I wasn't expecting that.
With Williamson playing.
Yeah.
What's the line on it?
He's got to be worth 5 points, right?
Yeah, easy. 4.5 points.
It's only it's 7. I say only now compared to your number.
There's another favorite I'm on today in the NBA, but the NBA has been very good so far, and I feel like why I handicapped this league last year was there's so much incentive early in the year with that play-in tournament that we're getting a real effort from these good teams early on in the season.
And I remember the reaction from actually all of us around the studio when you said, take the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron loves to win. He's going to win that first. And we were all kind of like,
20-1.
And they did. They pulled it off.
They were 20-1 last year. So,
let's go to the Lakers, actually. And this is a situational spot because, of course, that was a bad loss to the Pistons, 115-103, after they were having a pretty impressive year. They were 4-2 going into that game. Now they're 4-3. They're just 1-3 on the road. Going to Memphis, the Grizzlies, a 2.5-point favorite, total 231.
I made the Lakers one. Rui Hachimura is out for the Lakers. Anthony Davis is questionable. I think he's going to play. He's in my number. Desmond Bane, the shooting guard for Memphis, he is out with an oblique injury. And Marcus Smart still out, who's a talented sixth man still in the NBA. So a couple injuries for Memphis you got to pay attention to. G.G. Jackson, not worth much of the line, but he is out as well. Cam Spencer, Connecticut kid, he is out. John Contra is out. Not a lot to the line. Desmond Bane worth more to the line than any of those guys, but I have the Lakers one here.
So is that enough to take 2.5?
With the Lakers?
Yes.
When you're crossing 0, I take a point off, so I would still only be about a 2.5-point play from me. I'd like to get 3 or more if I was going to bet the Lakers in this spot.
Keep an eye out for that. See if bettors like the Grizzlies, and we can jump in on the Lakers later on. We've got the Dallas Mavs, a 10-point favorite at home against the Chicago Bulls. 236.5 is the total in this one.
Levine's still questionable for the Chicago Bulls. Not worth as much of the betting line as he had been because the Bulls have done a nice job bringing some talent in. So I've got him worth 2 points to the betting line. I have him in my number. I made Dallas 12.5 and 229.5. Here's
a big game right here. Oklahoma City Thunder against Denver. I mean, the Thunder have been a very fun team to watch as well. 7-0, 4-0 on the road so far. The Nuggets kind of starting to figure some things out. Still no Murray, right? Jokic coming off a triple-double in the Toronto game. What do you think about this one? Thunder, 7-point favorite on the road and the total 222.
Yeah, well, without Murray, that's, a big loss, but they also are now going to be without Aaron Gordon. So without two of their better players, and Gordon is their defensive glue guy. He'll guard the best offensive player on the other team, and he has just been a great rebounder. He's a great scorer. I thought when they picked him up from Orlando, I thought, wow, that was a great pickup. They knew what they were doing.
Was that midseason before they won?
Couple years ago. Yeah, it was midseason before they won.
Yeah, okay, I remember that.
Yep. Mid-season, so he had a half of a year to blend in, and he did. And then once the playoffs started, he really took over, and defensively, he just became the man. And that team, from going to playing no defense, played great defense.
Mm-hmm.
That's a high number though to make against Jokic in any of these situations. I'm going to be probably though higher than that because I didn't do the math on it yet. But
what about the total?
Going to be about 8 or 9. I made the total. I got to take points off for Murray. 226.
Yeah, without Aaron Gordon in too, who you said is their best defensive player.
Yeah,
we know OKC can score,
Yeah.
So it's 222.
So I lean to the over, but still not a big enough difference for me to have value in making a play on that game.
Was Gordon out the last game too when the game went over and we like the under?
He got hurt in the last game.
Okay.
I would have to look back, and I don't know if there's any revenge factor here. If Denver dominated last year's series, and Oklahoma City knows that Denver's kind of the team they have to go through, Oklahoma City's playing such great basketball right now that, again, there's another favorite I'm on.
I will have that sheet. I will check it out on a break, but let's go through these last 3 games really quick. The Heat going to Phoenix, another really good matchup. The Sun -5.5 in this one, 222.5. Any thoughts or leans in this one?
My number is Phoenix 5 and 219.5. So I'm really right there on the number on both these teams. Bradley Beal is probable and will play tonight for the Suns. Kevin Love out. Jaime Jaquez out for Miami. Maybe a point and a half value for those two guys.
The Suns right now 6-1. 4-0 at home to start the season. So
I watched them the last preseason game of the year, and they were really high on their new point guard, Ty Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And that was going to free up Booker to go to shooting guard, and now they have really good passers at every position, and they are really good scorers. I knew that was going to be a really good basketball team.
Booker he's the one that really shocked me with how much playing time he got in the Olympics, but he's a really good basketball player. I think he does all the little things, right?
He does a lot. He's a great three-point shooter, but he does. You're right. He rebounds. He's a good passer. He plays good defense. So he's just a really good all-around player.
And we are seeing that now with him and KD. Things are really starting to turn around. We knew it would take a little time for the things to click there. Let's go to Toronto and Sacramento. The Kings -11, total 237.5.
Yeah, I made them 12, and wow, that total awfully high. I made it 227.5. They got me the other day, Toronto did. I just didn't think Toronto, without Barnes and without Quickly in the lineup, I just don't see this team scoring that many points, but they did it with the Nuggets.
Yep.
And you just mentioned that was Gordon out that game. He wasn't. He got injured in that game. But
Joker did have a triple-double.
Flying over. Yeah,
he was locked
I think
in.
both teams shot the ball really well. I'd have to go back and look and see Monday what the pace was of that game. If I knew we were going to keep this pace under 100, I think it'd be pretty good shot of betting that. But again, I'm not going to shy away from an under. It hasn't moved. The total stayed there. You got to have 4 perfect quarters. I mean, you got to get 60 in every quarter to get this over. One bad quarter can get this game to go under. And I guess Toronto's gone over 5 straight games.
Wow.
Maybe that's why. Sacramento's under. They went under their last game. So I'll go under here.
237.5. Let's see if that is that the best number? It is. Circa actually 238. So, but across the board, it's 237. So I think it's going your way. Last but not least, 76ers going to LA to take on the Clippers. Clippers -1.5, total 215 in this one.
Looking here, George. Look at Paul George coming back home to play the Clippers. How do you think he's going to do in this game tonight? He's going to be rather fired up. I think that the the Sixers should be the favorite here in this game.
I like Paul George, but in recent years, he kind of disappears in big games like this, going back to old spots.
And there's nobody on the Clippers to guard him. No Kawhi. Since Kawhi's out, I don't think they have the defensive player to stop Paul George. But, he was out for the beginning part of the year. He's only played one game so far. So he's definitely nowhere near midseason form. But he's going to be ready. The guys on his team are going to rally around him because they know what a big game it is for Paul George. So you also get the Clipper factor that he left and the players on the Clippers feel like you abandoned us. So they're going to play harder too, but I just don't think they have the same type of talent without Kawhi Leonard. So I think Philadelphia should be the favorite here.
Okay. Is it enough to take though? Or would you play that money line plus 105? Maybe wait in game?
You could
try and get a better number.
Do either or. You're not going to get a lot of value on the money line, but instead of laying $1.10, taking 1.5, you might get plus 105.
Okay. That's it for today's action. When we come back from our short break, we're going to go all college football, 2 MAC games, and 2 big Saturday games we will cover. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on Sports by the Book.
South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Sports by the Book live at the South Point studio. I'm Alex White alongside Kenny White. Thank you, everybody, for jumping in the chat. We've got Dean, Nick, Vicarious Vegas is back. Haven't seen them in a while. JR and Vince. Vince will let me know if there's any questions or anything that we need to know because I'm actually not on the physical chat. But we appreciate you guys requesting games. As always, we're going to get to those shortly. First, we're going to talk about the 2 MAC games that we have tonight. Now, yesterday, both favorites did win. Neither covered. First game stayed under that total. I didn't really look and see if it was because of weather, but very low-scoring game there. The second one, depending on the number, but it was a push for the total mostly there. So tonight,
I talked myself out of the dog in the first game.
Yeah.
And looking just how the games and how the teams were going. But I think weather did affect it. Bowling Green made 3 short field goals, and then they had a 27-yard field goal blocked. So they didn't punch it in the red zone like they should have. I thought they should have scored twice, and it could have been 20-7 at halftime very easily and would have helped me get that game over. But if you're gonna, you're gonna drive the length of the field and get a blocked field goal, that's when unders happen, and that's things like that do happen, and that's why I'm on unders more than overs. But the weather did affect that a little bit.
Looking at tonight's 2 games, Ohio at Kent State. Now we know Kent State has definitely struggled metrics wise. They're 134, 133 in both yards per game and total yards allowed. So they have not won a game yet this year. They are 0-8, 2-6 against the spread. They are 5-3 to the over. On the flip side, Ohio, though, 3-5 straight up, so nothing crazy. 4-4 against the spread and 5-3 to the over as well. Of course, it is going to be a pretty big number here. Ohio, 20-point favorite on the road, total 52.5. What do your numbers say? Anything jump out to you?
I have a 17-point difference between the 2 teams, so Ohio is the far better football team. Kent State has played better in the MAC play, even though they're 0-4. They've covered twice. They scored more than 30 points twice, more than 21, 3 of their 4 games. They played their best games, and that came off the heels of At Tennessee, they lost 71-0, and at Penn State, 56-0. But they learned a lot. They played the big boys, and they improved. I didn't improve their power rating that much though, but I see in my performance rating, 3 of their last 4 games they've performed 12 points better than my power rating. Now, Kenny Burns, the head coach of Kent State, and I talk a lot about this. Some guys are meant to be head coaches. Some guys are meant to be assistant coaches. Some gals are meant to be head coaches, and some are meant to be assistants. Kenny Burns has never been an offensive coordinator. He was a running back coach at Minnesota when he got the job here at Kent State. They went 1-11 last year. They were 4-8 ATS. He underachieved with what he had, and he's 2-6 ATS this year. So he's 6-14 now against the point spread. His team's underachieve. I did say they did play better because they've covered 2 of their last 3 games. They were 0-5 ATS to start the season. Ohio's just the better football team. It all depends on if Ohio is ready and not looking past them. I really don't have a play on this game. I lean to the over because of Kent State's defense, 133rd in the country. Now, their offense is that bad too. But looking at their 4 MAC games, Kent State, they've been outscored 44-27, 71 points. So the total is just 52 and a half, somewhere in that range.
52 and a half, yes.
Yeah. So I lean to the over there in that one.
What's your rankings?
And the weather's great. No bad weather.
Okay. What's your rankings for Ohio, though? Because defensively, they are ranked 41st in total yards allowed. Offensively, they're sitting there just at 80th. Now, I know there's some really good offensive teams in the FBS, so it's a tough ranking. But defensively, they have pretty good numbers.
I have their offense 96th best and their defense 98th.
Oh.
So right there, their schedule-wise, they played the 121st schedule in the country. Not very good. They played some very weak teams. And one was in their conference, Akron, Morgan State they played. Everybody else, decent, not great though.
To go with your over, though, Parker Navarro, quarterback for Ohio, has been very good this year, 7.9 yards per attempt. Does throw some interceptions, though. He is 7-to-7 ratio, right? But
not very good.
Dual threat quarterback.
Yeah, second leading rusher on the team, 515 rushing yards.
So he can help there, too.
Anthony Tyus, their running back's outstanding as well. Averages almost 6 yards a carry. So Ohio's going to run the ball right through Kent State. It's just hard for me to lay that many points. But I do like over. Lean to the over. I did bet a 1% play on the over for the fact that Kent State's defense is just so bad.
We did see Kennesaw State get their first win, and it was quite an upset, right, over Liberty. Waiting to see when Kent State will get theirs. But let's go to a more intriguing game. Northern Illinois at Western Michigan. Western Michigan right now number 1 in the MAC conference. They are 4-0. Have not played a very tough schedule, though, but they are still the favorite. No, they're not. They are the underdog. Northern Illinois is the favorite. They are a 1.5-point favorite on the road, total 52. So let's start off right there. Is the right team favored, even though Western Michigan is number 1 in this conference right now?
Well, we go back to week 2 of the season, and Northern Illinois went into South Bend and beat Notre Dame. And they beat them 16-14, a huge upset victory. They became the favorite to win the MAC.
Yeah.
At that point, once you beat Notre Dame, you're now the favorite to win your conference. And then they ended up losing to Buffalo in an overtime game at home the next week, or 2 weeks later. They had a week off to recover. But they beat Bowling Green to get back to 1-1. Then they got a loss. They lost to Toledo at home, and then upset last week against Ball State. So 1-3.
Wow.
The team that was basically the favorite to win it all. Now, Western Michigan has played the 4 weakest teams in the MAC. They beat Ball State, Akron, Buffalo, and Kent State. They are stepping up in talent here to play Northern Illinois. And Northern Illinois is 1-3. I have a feeling that Northern Illinois comes to play tonight. They're the better football team, but Western Michigan has the better quarterback.
But Northern Illinois has the far better defense.
Far better defense. It's not even close. On the just in the Mid-American games, the 4 Mid-American games that these teams have played, Western Michigan is allowing 32 points per game, and Northern Illinois just 16.
So Western Michigan also 114th against the pass. Do we think Ethan Hampton, starting quarterback for Northern Illinois, will find some success here against this defense?
He needs to. The offense has not played well, other than when they played Western Illinois. They put up 54 against them, but that's a horrible team. That team, if you use their average, it drags down their strength of schedule because they played Notre Dame, they played North Carolina State, they played the second two best teams in the MAC in Bowling Green and Toledo so far. So they've played some very good teams. So
I guess they play up to their competition. I forgot to check what my number was.
You're right. I think they have, and I think this is a game where, you know, even though Western Michigan is 4-0, and I have them a 97 rating, I have Northern Illinois 4 points better, 4.5 points better. Western Michigan has performance rating is 5 points lower than my rating, where Northern Illinois' performance rating is right there, 100 and a 101.5. So it's pretty similar. I have a sneaky feeling Northern Illinois 1-3 beats the 4-0 Western Michigan team.
If you want to just lay the money line there for them to win outright, minus 125 here at the South Point, I do like that angle. I did make Northern Illinois a 3-point favorite here on the road, so that will be a bet for me. Try and get a...
You made Northern Illinois what?
3.
Oh, nice.
I probably didn't give Western Michigan much
and you can't.
home field.
I don't think you need to.
Okay. So there, I'm going to take that, minus 125. Let's go to the two big games that we have to talk about. Michigan at Indiana. I don't know if you've heard, but Indiana is undefeated, and they are 7-1 against the spread. It is a crazy, crazy story. Now they're a 14-point favorite at home against the defending champion in Michigan. We know Michigan has had their struggles offensively, still a very good defensive team. See if they can hang around in this one. But as I mentioned, 9-0 for Indiana. I'm sorry, I said 7-1. They're now 8-1 against the spread after they go down 10-0 to Michigan State, and then have, I think, 47 unanswered points in that one. So I have nothing. I think that number is right. I did make Indiana about 14 here at home, and the total I made very close. Maybe slightly higher, about 50. Yes, I made it 51.5.
You did.
Any differences for you?
Well, you know, I use, in baseball, I use winning streaks.
Mm-hmm.
And when teams are on a streak of 3 wins or more, I add 5 cents to the 5 cents for each win. So 3-game winning streak, I would add 15 cents to that team. So a $1.30 favorite becomes a $1.45 favorite. And if it's a 4-game winning streak, they become a $1.50 favorite, and so on up. If they won 20 games in a row, I'm adding basically $1, and a 1.30 favorite becomes a 2.30 favorite. And the reason I went that direction is Indiana has this winning streak going. They're confident. They've got great confidence coming into this game. So I only made it 8.5, but I have to add points to their team because of the winning streak that they're on. And I've never done this in football before, but thinking about it now, I don't want to be on Michigan, but I do want to be on the under. Michigan's offense is horrible, but Michigan's defense is the real deal.
Right.
They're going to come to play, and Indiana's defense is the real deal. They give up 10 points in the first quarter last week to Michigan State, and then goose eggs from there. Right. I only made the total 42. So I do like this game under. And you could get some weather this weekend, could get some windy weather.
Home revenge, of course, for Indiana, because Michigan, we know, was undefeated last year. They lost 52-7 to Michigan, so they will remember that as well, even though there are not a lot of new players. And Cignetti, it is his first year here, but still have that angle as well.
That's being talked about. That's in the locker room. That's posted on the locker room boards, you know, what the score was last year. So Indiana is really a good football team, and they're very well coached. And again, I think you have to take into consideration when you're betting these games that winning streak. And I don't know what it's worth, but I know that, you know, Arizona State beat me last week against Oklahoma State. And that was kind of a similar situation with Oklahoma State losing 5 in a row. You lose confidence. You don't have confidence. Indiana's a very confident football team.
Yeah. That was a tough one with Oklahoma State. I do just want to bring up the fact that Michigan is 6-3 to the over this year, even though they have had their struggles offensively. Are we expecting to see Davis Warren at the quarterback position? Because that's been a whole nother thing. They've switched off from about 3 different quarterbacks.
Yeah, no, they have not been able to settle on a guy under center, and I think it could be Warren. I think you could see their starter, the running quarterback that they went to for a while, but that didn't work out. Alex Orji.
Yeah.
So Warren, a junior, all about the same rating for me.
Yeah.
They've got 5 guys. When you're Michigan, you bring in talented football players. So they've got guys there. It's just having the entire offense click. And you're right, they have been over. I'm really shocked to see as many overs with Michigan this year, but they haven't gone over by much. I can tell you that. They went over with Texas. There was 43 points scored in the game. That's it. They went over with USC, 51 points in the game. Minnesota went over, 51 points in the game. Washington went over, 44 points in the game. Michigan State went over, 41 points were scored in that game. And then Oregon, that was their highest scoring game of the year, the last one. They lost 38-17. So there was 55 points scored in that game. But their median score is still in the low 40s.
I'm not going to try and make a case for us to take the points here, but I do just want to bring up the fact, and you mentioning all of those teams, that's a really tough schedule.
They played the toughest schedules in the country.
The Texas, Oregon. I mean, USC is even a good team.
USC is a favorite over BYU tomorrow on a neutral. Sorry. Minnesota, really well coached team and very good team. Washington, still talented. Illinois, talented. Michigan State, still very good team. Oregon, really good team. And Indiana schedule, they have 3 games against a below average college football game team where Michigan doesn't have any of those.
Yeah.
And Indiana has only played 2 teams this year that are 10 points better than an average team. And that was Nebraska at home and Washington at home. Michigan's the best team they played this year.
Michigan State?
Michigan.
Oh, this will be.
This weekend.
Yeah.
Michigan is the best team that Indiana's played this year.
Should still be noted, though, they did beat Washington with a backup quarterback, so that was very impressive.
Yeah.
And
a very
Nebraska.
talented quarterback who comes from a very talented family, Trace Jackson Davis's younger brother. And he had experience from last year starting in the offense. He played a lot at Indiana, but then when the new coach came in, they brought in O'Rourke at quarterback. He became the second stringer, but he's learned a lot and he has experience. So you're right. That was a win. That was a good win on the road at Washington. Nebraska, I thought that wasn't on the road. That was at home against Washington. They were at home that game.
Okay.
So, but Nebraska and Washington are 2 really good football teams. That's the 2 best they played. Now Michigan's the best one, but they're better than Michigan.
So many games. I'm starting to get mixed up where teams are playing.
I'm glad I've been doing this with you and doing my show because it's made my memory better.
Yeah, just repetition.
Talking about these teams and coaches and that.
Well, let's talk about this game here, Alabama at LSU. We have Bama as a 3-point favorite on the road. 2 really good quarterbacks in this one. The total is 58.5, I believe, as long as it has not moved. 58.5 right here. So big game for both of these teams. Alabama is 6-2. They're 3-2 in SEC play. They're 4-4 against the spread. LSU 6-2 also, 3-1 in conference play. And they are 3-5 against the spread. Coming off a brutal loss to Texas A&M. Both of these teams, though, are coming off a bye. Extra time to prepare. And
such a big game for both teams because when you're talking about the college football playoff, where I bury that sheet.
Here, you can have mine.
They are you said Alabama was they're number 8.
Yes.
LSU is not on that list. And LSU has 2 losses. They were to USC and Texas A&M. That's not bad losses. So if LSU is to run the table, they would put themselves in the national championship picture.
They are 15th right now.
So they're right there. If they beat Alabama, they are in. So this is a major game. Now I made it pick and 59. Alabama was 3. I know dropped to 2.5. So I don't know if there's anything there for me, but there's 3s out there now. Let's back to 3. I would have to look this game over a little bit more, but this is a huge rivalry. These teams do not like each other. They do play close games. Last year, Alabama did win 42-28 at home. The year before that, LSU won 32-31 in their home game.
Wow.
So, I think it's going to be a close game. LSU this year, they've power rated out just to a performance rating of 117, where Alabama's a 125.5. I think LSU's far better than what they've performed at. But if I go back and I look at their last 4 games, they performed to a 126.5, what Alabama is. So they are playing their best football, other than losing to Texas A&M at Texas A&M, and they lost the turnover battle in that game, -2. If they take care of the football, I think LSU's in this game.
I made a pick as well, so I am definitely leaning right now to taking the points here with the home dog. Total-wise, I mean, when you look at their numbers, both of these teams, elite offensives, they've kind of struggled defensively. Alabama right now, 43rd in total yards allowed, and then LSU 58th, which is actually good compared to the defense we saw last year. And that is why they only have 2 losses on the year, because their defense has really stepped up. And 2 really good quarterbacks. What did you make this total?
I made the total 59, but knowing that they've had extra time to prepare, I think that benefits the defenses.
Okay.
More time to prepare and more time to know what you're going up against. And I feel like this is a playoff game, because the winner is in the playoff, the shot at the college football playoffs. I believe the loser may be out to the point they can't get back in with 3 losses, because they both have 2 losses. So,
and you say that because typically for playoff games, game 7s, things like that, you're looking at the under.
Unders. Well, coaches get more conservative. The games get tight and can be low scoring. The last 2 years, though, those numbers were a lot higher, 42-28 and 32-31. But I don't think those games had as much meaning as this one has.
Look at the Ohio State and Penn State game last week. Saw some scoring early on, and then it was all defense, and that game stayed under that total very easily.
You mentioned the defensive stats for both teams, and they don't look great, but they both played an amazing schedule.
Yeah.
When you look at who Alabama has played in Wisconsin and Georgia, South Carolina, who's good now, Tennessee, Missouri, and they just shut out Missouri.
Yep.
They held Tennessee to 24 on the road. They ended up losing the game, but they held them to 24 in Tennessee. LSU has played USC, South Carolina, UCLA, who's improving, Mississippi, Arkansas, and Texas A&M. So They played really good offenses so far, and they are good defenses. I have both defenses ranked very high.
Very interesting as well, because it looks like it'll be strength on strength here. Alabama runs 57% of the time. They are 43rd, and LSU is better against the run, 47th in opponent rushing yards and 86th in opponent passing yards. And then on the flip side, we know LSU likes to throw the ball more. They're only running 39% of the time, passing 60% of the time. And then we have Bama here, who is better against the pass. So,
and sometimes numbers lie because of who you've played.
Mm-hmm.
So Western Michigan, who we just talked about, played the 4 weakest teams in the MAC. They probably have great defensive numbers. Alabama have they're the 3rd best defense in the country, talent-wise, and LSU's the 18th best defense in the country. So you got 2 top 25 defenses, but you have 2 top 10 offenses going head-to-head. I just think this game being really the winner of this game has the inside track of making the college football playoff, because if they both have 3 losses at the end of the year, head-to-head, LSU, if they won this game, is in.
So we won't have this game land on 3 for Chris Andrews and Vinny's sake. But if you were going to predict the score here, and I mean, because it can still be a really high scoring game and stay under 58.5.
I'm probably going to be betting on LSU. So I hope it's LSU 28-27.
And then that's still right there. Okay, that's it for us for today. Please subscribe to Sports by the Book so you can catch all of our great shows. As I mentioned at the beginning, 7 days a week, Sunday through Friday, 9 a.m. On Saturdays. Catch myself and Jeff Parles at 8 a.m. Jeff Parles will be back with you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Kenny White will be back with you Friday, 9 a.m. At noon. Just 2 hours away. Make sure and go to Punchlines FN and catch Frank Nicotero and Matt Neverett for today's episode. You can find them 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Thanks so much for being with us today. Thank you, everybody in the back, Sean, Ryan, Vince, and Ann. We appreciate all of your help. We'll see you guys very soon. Thanks for joining us. This is Sports by the Book.